All right, so my first main idea from chapter one is through a greater understanding of other cultures and the way they communicate, we can form deeper and more meaningful relationships with people of said cultures. And so from page 20, I have a quote: "The power of being understood on an authentic level can greatly enhance relationship quality, satisfaction, and personal insight." And so we can grow ourselves as well as being enriched by and enriching the lives of others through intercultural communication. And this can apply to personal relationships or business. And I suppose, like with an intercultural communication, I know in the previous assignment we had talked about, like with someone who English isn't their first language, it could be possibly a more difficult conversation, but it could also be possibly more rewarding as well for that same reason. And so, my second major idea: the study of intercultural communication can help one become aware of how they present themselves and how or why others present themselves the way they do. So, it kind of ties in with the last one. But and then on page 28, I found my quote, which is: "Oftentimes, our ignorance of a different culture's worldviews or values can produce unintentional clashes between ourselves and people of that culture. We may not even notice that we violated another culture's norms in a particular communication scene." So this is pretty impactful because it sheds light on why the study of intercultural communication is so important. Offending somebody, whether you meant to or not, is in any way to form, a relationship of any kind. You don't want to start out on that foot. In terms of an intercultural communication, we could be talking about very important things, politics, for instance, leaders of countries having trouble communicating with each other. So that's what I had for chapter one. So chapter two really gets down to the details of breaking down these intercultural communications. So my first idea is that both communicators' cultural frames of reference, the context, and intercultural expectation and perception form the symbolic exchange process. So this basically is what an intercultural communication is when you break it down. And so on page 33, my quote: "Intercultural communication is an irreversible process because the decoder may form different impressions even in regard to the same repeated message." So this is important to remember, that, and it kind of breaks it down in this chapter, all these different things, but expression, tone, your word choice, and everything else leave a lasting impression on this person, and it can alter their perception not only of us, but it could even, if they don't often interact with someone from our particular culture, could even give them, a jaded view of our entire culture. And so that's something to remember too. And then my second major idea was to be able to utilize flexible intercultural communication and an ethno-relative mindset. Three content components are needed: knowledge, attitude, and skills. And so flexibility and appropriateness are important as well. But on page 44, actually in the last paragraph of the chapter, my quote is: "Intercultural knowledge opens doors to the diverse richness and breadth of the human experience. It reveals to us multiple ways of experiencing, sensing, feeling, and knowing. It helps us to start questioning our own stance regarding issues that we once took for granted. It widens our vision to include an alternative perspective of valuing and relating." And so this kind of ties back to chapter one, but through these communications, we're widening our own knowledge as well as using the knowledge that we already have in these conversations. And so, yeah, that's what I've got.